There you go. You look very,
Mary?
yeah, professorial. Thank you.
Mary?
Oh, this is the person that somebody has to sign.
Jim wanted to ask a question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I have performed a marriage in the state of California. I've officiated a marriage in the state of California.
Uh-huh.
I'm not a minister yet. They have a provision where an ordinary citizen can do that.
Wait, that's what Mike and I were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
They do have that provision. Mike has done it, I guess, on
noticed-
more than one occasion.
I noticed it wasn't down here on that page.
Right, I didn't think of it.
What have I done?
Sorry. And it's not on there, you know, this is straight from the state. They don't publicize it or encourage it, but they'll allow it.
A lot of times somebody's
Huh?
brother
What have I
will
done?
marry his sister.
No, he was raising the same
It
point
was
you
that sort
raised.
of
You can
thing.
go
It
down to
was
the,
coworkers, and they wanted me to do it.
did you,
No, do you have to get a special permission?
Yeah, you
Yes.
got, it's a one-day thing from the
Yeah.
town.
24-hour
You're
permission.
20, yeah.
Yeah,
Just
that's-
24 hours.
What she says.
Yeah, but that's what they were doing when they originally had the same-sex marriage.
it has to be turned
They
on
would
the
get
wall.
a 24-hour, and then they got to lose a long period of time. because so many people
Uh-huh.
were getting married right after the law passed.
And so
Yeah.
it doesn't seem like it's
Yeah.
alive.
We're
You know,
legally
stuff
married.
gets turned off at 5 o'clock, I'm sorry.
We're legally
Yeah,
married.
and I thought
What
that
about
if
the
you turned
timer
it
in
off,
there?
it would go back on.
Is
At least one
is
of those
it on?
25 people was a minister, did.
For
Okay.
me in the past, so I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on.
But I really, I probably shouldn't stop to run the air conditioner.
Open the door back here.
Thanks, I'm sorry. for-
So,
People for 24 hours.
following the sworn statement that you're eligible, that somebody is eligible to get this information, which I'm not quite sure about. There are sample ceremonies, briefly sample ceremonies. There's 100 things you can do. There's a straightforward one that says, you know, who gives this woman? That doesn't happen a lot anymore. Often women give themselves. They have, and that's what they say, I give my, you know, or they don't even have it in the wedding. The vows, most people like to write their vows. It's your sincere hope as an officiant that they're not more than 2 pages. You know, some people, of course, bless their hearts, I've been in the South too long. They want to say everything
They're
about
sincere.
that person as they're giving their vows. He's the most wonderful person, he's handsome, he's kind, you know, he brings me my coffee, and all of those things they put into their vows. And they're their vows, you know. You can give them sample vows, and they say, you know, they're usually not more than a paragraph, dear, and all of that, but if they got 2 pages, they got 2 pages, and so they write them, they give them.
Mary, I'd like to say something about, you know, when they're getting married. So many people love having a seaside wedding. Please, if you marry somebody on the ocean, right next to the ocean, in the sand, get a little rug of some kind to put down. I had them drop the ring on 2 occasions.
wow.
Once it took 2 hours to find it, and the other thing never did. So, and it's just real simple. And this is one of those things the minister has to remember is
Right,
some
because
little
they-
carpet or
Uh-huh.
even a sheet. One place we used a sheet to put down. So if the ring gets dropped, you can find it. Same
Right.
thing in
It's a
Spain.
great
tip.
idea.
I've been
It
in
is,
the
it's a
middle of
great
the
tip.
desert and same
We
thing.
should check it, we'll have to start gathering some of these good tips and add them to the book.
Okay, can I do one more? The vows don't have to be oral. I've had this one person said, can I just whisper my vows to my bride?
Wow.
It's private and I don't want anybody else to hear it. I said, of course you can.
Sure.
And they put their foreheads together and everybody started to cry because he was so sincere in whispering it. So many of these things you see in the movies are just kind of blanket, but you as a minister can get a sense of where they're coming from.
And support that.
And
That's
one
the
other thing
role.
that I suggest everybody mention that I did at one wedding, and it was so neat, is that the bride said, I don't know if I want to carry flowers or anything. And I said, ask all your female friends to bring a flower. And as she walked down the aisle, they all gave her a blessing on a flower. And when she got to the altar, she took a bow out of her hair and wrapped it, and that was her bouquet.
Oh, that was very nice.
That's sweet.
Very, very
Yes,
simple.
yes,
And
uh-huh.
they save on the price of flowers.
Well, and there's just no discounting the power of that love that came with that. That's wonderful.
Okay, that's a good
I
one.
might steal that one.
Please do.
That's kind of what we're here for, is to provide tips to maximize everybody's ability to do those things. So, I had something and I forgot it. I'm sure I forgot. The sand ceremony is one of the most common used to bring families together who have children on both sides. Sand ceremony is you allow them to suggest to them they pick a vessel that they want on display in their home. And then you get all different, I don't do it. I encourage them, take the children shopping for sand and do it together as a family. But they bring in then different colored sand. And at the wedding, each person picks the sand that they want. They pour it all in the bowl, and then they each put their hand through the bowl and mix the sand together so that the family from the different places has become one. And then it's simple. You don't get in a lot of trouble, and they've got something they will have for a long time. And that's in here. Then the traditional unity candle, the mother's rose presentation, the couples, especially if Tom was worried about the couple, he did a rose presentation to them, in which after they had, before the pronouncement, but after everything else was done, he handed each of them a rose and asked them to give it to the other person, so they exchanged roses. And he said, "This is the first gift of your married life together. I want you to remember this gift, and I want you to make the rose symbolic of a coming together from a difference." He said, "There will always be differences. There will always be misunderstandings, but you select a place in whatever place you're living that the rose can be put. And when a person feels as though they want this distancing, this problem to end, they put a rose in this place, and the other person has a responsibility to accept the rose and to open discussions about what was going on." And it's a tool, a strategy for people to get back to discussing and have a mechanism so they don't, being the first one is not a loss of pride. I'm so old and I've lost my pride so many times, it's part of me that's hard to believe that, would ever be an impediment. But in my youth, I was a prideful thing sometimes, and I didn't want to admit I was wrong, especially if I wasn't wrong, and which I thought was most of the time. So you have to have a way to open communications between people who haven't learned yet all the communication skills we learn as we go through life. So that's why I put that in there. The wine ceremony, it is a Jewish ceremony, but a lot of people like to have it. They like that part of it, and they bring it into their own ceremony. Some people release butterflies. In the old days, they used to throw rice, but then we used to have to sweep it up. It's always a problem. And then I put in some sample readings. Sometimes, they say, "Oh, I so want my cousin from Boston to be a part of the ceremony." And we said, "Well, why don't you have her read something?" "Well, what would you read?" And then we have a few options that they can look at. And then, of course, they usually, when you sit down with them, you can lay out the wedding and say, "These are all options. You accept them or you decline them." Usually, in the thing starts, and you ask about, "How long do you anticipate the ceremony lasting?" And the groom says 10 minutes, and the bride says a half an hour. And, you kind of work together to be sure that what they want to have covered is covered, and that the groom is comfortable with the fact that it's probably going to take more than 10 minutes, and it'll be okay. We say to people very clearly that we would like them not to drink alcohol until after the wedding. We don't want to marry somebody who is under the influence. Well, first of all, we think it demeans the event. Secondly, it's how drunk are they? How are they capable of making it? Just too much. We just say don't drink until. And if it's too hard for you not to drink, to wait a half an hour for a drink, then we have a separate problem issue. Okay, wedding information. This is. It says wedding information and agreement. That is one of our ministers who does a fair amount of weddings, has an agreement that she puts out to the couple the first time they meet. And so she's getting some information about them, if they have any religious affiliations, and She talks to them about what it's going to cost. She includes the rehearsal dinner in the cost when she does the cost of the wedding, she'll go. You don't have a rehearsal dinner, I don't know if you get a rebate or not, that's between them. And then, she has a book on weddings with ceremony, all different kinds of ceremonies that she loans them. It says right here, it's a loan, you better give it back.
Mary, does anybody have an idea of how much to charge?
Well, you know, we can talk about that. Charging people is complicated. And our kind of rule of thumb was how much did they spend on the booze?
Good one.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Okay? If that's a voluntary expense that they chose to, and so, you know, if they're having a potluck and everybody's, you know, bringing something and they're getting their wine from Joe's, then you charge them $150, you know, or I had somebody come to me and saying, I just can't pay it. I said, God bless you. You know, I'm not doing this just for the money. But if they go to a wedding where they have champagne fountains and they have cases of only the best alcohol, and you know, then we say to them, you know, hey, this is probably a $500 wedding. And if you don't want to pay that, you can probably get a minister that values their time and themselves less. But we feel as though you have demonstrated that this wedding is important to you, and we hope that the wedding is as important as the party. And unless there's a hardship you can share with us, we think that's a reasonable compensation.
The other thing that I've been through is when I first started, I would do them for people that I knew, and I would charge $250 or $300, and then I found that I'm spending a lot of time doing this because you have to initially meet with them, and then you kind of meet with them again to when they finally decided what they want for their vows and everything, and then you got to go to the rehearsal, and then you do the wedding, and sometimes the wedding is like one time I had to go all the way to San Francisco. One time I was clear up in Ben Lomond where they had to shuttle you in, and so I learned the hard way that I started to ask more, you know, and so I think the last one I did was $650, and it really, when you think about it, it's not a lot, because I'm sure, I've never found out what other ministers charge if they were to call some church and just
you know,
do it.
And it's different. If you call a church, I mean, we did a little checking. If somebody calls a church and they're not a member of that church,
Yeah.
then they pay to rent the church as well as to pay the minister to do the wedding. The other thing is, Tom has done a lot of interdenominational weddings. Most rabbis won't come for under $1,000.
Oh yeah, they won't do funerals for under $500.
Yeah.
So that
And imams, that's the Islamic person, they charge about $1,000. Well, sometimes they charge less, but only if they can go for conversions. The imam, well, they don't say that, but they say, well, we want the opportunity to really talk to people so that they can understand Islam before the wedding goes forward. And so, you know, you just have to get a sense of what's going on with the wedding. You know, to this day, if we had some little girl who was pregnant and terrified and you know, just had to get married in a hurry and they didn't have any money, we'd just do it.
Yeah.
And we have never turned down a couple who was unable to get married in the past, had been together for a long time, and the laws changed, and so they could be together. We never not married that person because they didn't have any money. The message is too easily misinterpreted, I think, and we've always stood that should be, that they should be able to do that, and so therefore we'd always support it. Yeah.
Just everybody's sharing their pitfalls with weddings. When I started out, was particularly into doing weddings. Sometimes I would get so involved in it that I would do things like translate the whole Lord's Prayer into Spanish because I thought this was a two-culture wedding, only to find out later that the mother-in-law, who was non-Hispanic, maybe didn't want to bring that out in it. And I was overdoing all of this. And so I learned, I think, it's better to let them, as you're saying, input
Yes.
what they
Yeah.
want,
Uh-huh.
including the in-laws, because the kids sort of wanted it. But then
Yes.
the mothers-in-laws, one of them didn't. And the other thing was about putting a lot of energy into a wedding and enjoying it, and everything goes well, and they're young and they're paying for the party, and then they're going off somewhere and the days go by and they really haven't yet paid the minister because that was not a priority and it all went to the party.
Uh-huh.
So that happened in one
Yes.
case as well.
So this minister that's things in here said asks for a deposit. And that's not
That's a
out of the
good one.
question.
Yeah, that's a good
They
idea.
probably have a little money now. They haven't spent it on every last thing they thought of. And so she asked for a deposit, so then she knows she has, really covered the
I
basics
never
and then
thought about that one.
the
That's a
rest.
good one.
Smart way to
That
go.
was not
I
good.
usually don't leave the house without a check.
Yeah.
Well, I've never had a problem with that. Like, I even had a couple pay for my airplane ticket, my hotel, go to Las Vegas. What was I gonna say? I don't remember. I can't remember.
Fine.
Oh, I look at my job as a minister, that I'm there for them if they need, like one time the bride was 45 minutes late, and so here's the groom, of course, in a panic. And part of my job is, okay, it's okay, and things like that, so another way, and another time the couple's still writing their marriage vows at the last minute, so I'm here for
That's
you.
uncommon.
And so it's like my time, and I've never had a problem with someone not paying. They've always been generous. But it's like, hey, my time is, I'm here for you.
And sometimes what you have to do as an officiant, and what we've had to do, is to step between the family and the bride and groom. Somebody's, the bride says, I can't get married until my grandmother's here. She's coming, coming in a car, someone's gone to get her, can't get married. And the groom's sister said, if you don't start this wedding within 5 minutes and that old lady holds it up, I'll knock her on her ass. And I said,
Whoa.
I said, perhaps we could step in here together and bring our hearts together, close our mouths, so that you do sometimes have to step into things where you go, where I would go. Tom is particularly good at that, and I get by, but I am quite comfortable stepping up and saying, I know that must have been important to you, dear, but it's really their wedding. We have to support what they want, so they have their memories. Your memories must be treasured. And then I nudge her off the stairs. No, you
I mean,
really not.
Mary, you will have, when you do weddings, I had one where the bride was 2 hours late because she couldn't get her veil on her head, on her hair, because her hair was out to here, and she had a dress that she couldn't take off. So finally the mother said, this is ridiculous. You didn't wear something, a dressing gown that you could take off over your veil. And so she slit the dress, because it was just a dressing gown, and she slit it, pulled it off, and her daughter had a huge tattoo, and she never told her mother she had a tattoo. Well, if you've never heard,
I'm sorry,
and
it
she's
probably wasn't
standing
funny.
there stark naked. She didn't have any clothes on underneath that dressing gown. Her mother was more upset about her having a tattoo. It was one of those things you go,
I've never had that come up.
yeah, and so you just are very calm, and you say, we are now an hour and 45 minutes late with this wedding.
Well, and sometimes it's a real problem if it's at a church and they have an event following.
Yeah.
And so you
Yeah.
have to say, okay, we can go forward with do, and done, but we can't go forward with, what do you want to do here?
That's true.
We
You
can
have to
move
clear
the
out.
ceremony part, and once we do the legal part here, we can move part of the ceremony to the reception. And you talk about how they can fix it. But your job is to keep them from ruining it for themselves, to keep somebody else from ruining it for them, and to just make it go as smoothly as possible. And if all else fails, you bring on Debbie, because she's going to tell you what to do when you're...
Okay, we take a